The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with worried voices. Ambassador Velthar stood at the center podium, his blue skin darker than usual. The tall alien from Centauri looked around the room at hundreds of other species. Everyone was asking the same question, but no one had an answer. "It has been 3 months," Velthar said, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. 3 months since we last heard from humanity." Murmurs filled the air. Some aliens clicked their tongues, others made sounds that humans would not understand. But the meaning was clear to everyone. This was not normal. Captain Jiwan sat in her small ship far from the council meeting. She was human, one of the few still traveling in space when everything went wrong. Her ship, the Meridian, floated near a bright star called Vega. She had been doing research there with her crew for months. "Captain," said Minho, her chief engineer. He was a short man with kind eyes who always worried about everything. "I still cannot reach Earth. The communications are completely dead." Jiwan looked at the screen showing their home star system. Earth should be there, along with Mars and all the other human colonies. But every time they tried to call home, they got nothing back. No voices, no signals, just empty space. "What about the other human worlds?" asked Hana, their tactical officer. She was young but very smart about weapons and defense. "Luna Base? The Europa Station?" Do-Yun, their science officer, shook his head. He spent most of his time looking at data and numbers. "I have tried everything. All human settlements are silent. It is like they all disappeared at the same time." But Jiwan knew they had not disappeared. Something else was happening. Something big. Back at the council, Ambassador Velthar was reading from a long list. No trade ships from human space. No diplomatic messages. No scientific data exchanges. No responses to any of our calls. He paused and looked around the room. "This is not like the humans we know." An alien with 6 arms raised one of them. "Maybe they are just busy. Humans are always building things." "For 3 months?" asked another voice from the crowd. "Without saying anything to anyone?" "Counselor." Taran stood up slowly. She was old and wise, even for her long-lived species. Her people had been part of the council for thousands of years. "I remember the last message from their ambassador. Ambassador Hayek seemed worried about something." Velthar nodded. "Yes. He spoke about threats to younger species. He said the galaxy was not as safe as we thought." "Human paranoia," said Admiral Nara with a laugh. She commanded the biggest fleet in the galaxy and was not afraid of anything. "They see danger everywhere. That is just how they are." But Tehran did not laugh. "Humans have been right about danger before. Remember the Proxima Wars? We said there was no threat. The humans prepared anyway. When the attack came, only their worlds were ready." The room got quiet. Everyone remembered that war. It had been a disaster for many species. Only the human worlds had been ready to fight back. Captain Jiwan decided to take her ship home. "Minho, set course for Earth. Best speed." "But Captain," Minho said, looking worried, "what if something dangerous happened there?" "Then we need to know about it," Jiwan replied. She had been born on Earth and would not abandon it now. The trip home took 2 weeks. As they got closer to the solar system, Do-Yun started seeing strange readings on his instruments. "Captain, there is something around Earth. Some kind of barrier." Jiwan looked at the screen. Earth was there, along with all the other planets. But around the whole system was a wall of energy that she had never seen before. It was like a giant bubble that covered everything. "Try to call through it," she ordered. Hana worked at her station for several minutes. "Nothing gets through. The barrier blocks everything. Communications, scans, even light seems different when it hits that wall." Do-Yun studied his readings. "This energy pattern, I have never seen anything like it." It is not just blocking signals, it is doing something else too. Back at the council, new reports were coming in. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures from the outer edge of the galaxy. The readings were coming from areas where humans had been building research stations. These energy levels are impossible, said the council's chief scientist. No known technology could create power like this. Admiral Nara studied the reports. What were the humans doing out there? We thought they were just exploring. Velthar looked at the data. Each reading was bigger than the last. The humans had been busy in places where no one else bothered to go. Far from the main trade routes, far from other species. Send ships to investigate, Admiral Nara ordered. I want to know what the humans were really building. Captain Jiwan tried everything to get through the barrier around Earth. Nothing worked. The wall of energy was perfect. It let nothing in and nothing out. Captain, said Minho quietly, what if they put this barrier up on purpose? What if they are hiding from something? Jiwan had been thinking the same thing. Humans did not hide without a good reason. They were fighters, not cowards. If they had built this wall, they had built it to keep something out, or to keep something in while they prepared. Doyen, she said, scan the outer system. Look for anything unusual. Doyen worked for hours. Finally, he looked up with wide eyes. Captain, there are structures out there, big ones. They were not there before. On the screen, Jiwan could see them. Massive constructions floating in space near the edge of the solar system. They looked like nothing she had ever seen. Not quite ships, not quite stations, something else entirely. What are they? Hana asked. I do not know, Jiwan replied. But I think we are about to find out why humanity went quiet. At the council, the first investigation ships were preparing to leave. Admiral Nara had chosen her best captains for the mission. They would travel to the outer rim and discover what the humans had been doing. Counselor Tehran watched the ships prepare. She had a bad feeling about all of this. In her long life, she had learned that when humans went quiet, it usually meant they were preparing for war. The question was, war against whom? Admiral Nara's investigation fleet reached the outer rim after 3 weeks of travel. 20 ships from different species flew together toward the coordinates where human research stations used to be. What they found made no sense. This is impossible, whispered Captain Jorik, a veteran explorer from the Vegan Alliance. His ship's sensors were showing readings that could not be real. Where small human research outposts once stood, now massive structures filled entire star systems. The constructions were so large they made planets look like tiny dots. Metal and energy patterns stretched between worlds, connecting everything in ways that hurt to look at. Dr. Sunho, the expedition's expert on ancient civilizations, stared at his screens in shock. These are not research stations. This is stellar engineering on a scale we have never imagined. Admiral Nara ordered all ships to stop at a safe distance. Even from far away, the energy readings were incredible. How long would it take to build something like this? She asked. Hundreds of years, replied her science officer. Maybe thousands. But the humans have only been in space for a few decades. Captain Jiwan's ship, the Meridian, had joined the investigation fleet. She knew humans, better than anyone else there. You are thinking about this wrong, she told Admiral Nara over the communications. Humans do not build things the way other species do. They find shortcuts. Jiwan was right. As the fleet moved closer, they discovered that the humans had not built these massive structures from nothing. They had taken apart entire moons and asteroids. They had moved planets. They had even changed the orbits of some stars. Look at this, said Doyen, studying the patterns. They did not just build randomly. Everything is connected. This whole region is like one giant machine. Commander Youngsu led the security team that went to explore an abandoned human facility. It was the size of a small city, but completely empty. The humans had left behind only their equipment and some data files. The data files were terrifying. They were studying dead civilizations, Young-Soo reported back to the fleet. Not for history. They were trying to figure out how species die. Dr. Sunho read through the files with growing horror. The humans had collected information about hundreds of extinct species. They had studied how each civilization had fallen, wars, plagues, natural disasters, and other causes of extinction. But the humans were looking for patterns. They found something, Dr. Sunho told Admiral Nara. All these civilizations across millions of years, they all died the same way. Something was hunting them. The investigation team found more facilities. Each one contained more evidence of human preparation, weapons that used science no one understood, defense systems that could move faster than light, technology that seemed to bend the rules of physics. But the most frightening discovery came when Commander Young-Soo accidentally activated one of the human defense platforms. The platform was small, about the size of a house. It had been floating dead in space for months. When Young-Soo's team got too close, it suddenly came to life. Warning signals filled the communications channels. The platform spoke in a calm human voice. Unknown vessels detected. Identify yourselves, or withdraw. Admiral Nara ordered her ships to identify themselves as Council forces. The platform paused for a moment, then replied, Council forces noted. Demonstration authorized to show defensive capability. What happened next changed everything. The platform turned toward a nearby asteroid belt. It fired no visible weapons. There were no explosions. But in the space of 3 seconds, every asteroid in the belt simply disappeared. Not destroyed. Not broken apart. Gone. How? Whispered Captain Jorik. The platform's voice answered as if it had heard him. Dimensional displacement. Asteroids. Relocated to safe coordinates outside this galaxy. Thank you for your cooperation. Engineer Minho studied the readings from his ship. The energy required for that. It should be impossible. You would need the power of a star. Maybe they have the power of a star, suggested Hana quietly. She was right. As the investigation continued, they found evidence that humans had been experimenting with stellar engineering. They had learned to control the energy output of suns. They had built machines that could move black holes. They had created technology that used entire star systems as power sources. But why? The answer came from Dr. Sunho's analysis of the human data files. They were not just studying how civilizations die, they were studying how to prevent it. Every piece of technology we have found, every weapon, every defense system, it all serves one purpose. Which is, asked Admiral Nara, to fight something that kills entire galaxies. Captain Jiwon felt her blood run cold. What kind of enemy requires this level of preparation? Dr. Sunho pulled up a human analysis report. According to their research, something comes through this region of space every few million years. It destroys all advanced life, then moves on. The humans found evidence of this happening dozens of times in the past. The investigation team discovered more human facilities. Each one revealed another piece of the puzzle. The humans had not been building random defenses. They had been preparing for a specific threat, something they knew was coming. Look at these patrol routes, said Doyen, showing Admiral Nara a map of human activities. They have been watching the space between galaxies. They have sensors pointed at areas where nothing should exist. Commander Young-Soo found weapon testing sites where humans had practiced destroying things that did not match any known technology. They were training to fight something we have never seen. The most disturbing discovery came from a facility that had been studying the Galactic Council itself. The humans had detailed files on every member species, military capabilities, political structures, economic weaknesses, and something else. They were looking for signs of outside influence, Dr. Sunho realized. They thought some council species might be compromised. Admiral Nara did not like that idea. Compromised by what? By whatever is coming. As the investigation fleet prepared to return to Council space, they received a priority message. Long-range sensors had detected massive objects moving through dark space toward their galaxy. The objects were too far away to identify, but they were big and they were coming fast. Captain G1 looked at the data and felt a chill run down her spine. How long until they arrive? 6 months, replied the message. Maybe less. The investigation fleet raced back toward the council chambers. They had found answers, but the answers only led to more questions. The humans had been preparing for war against an enemy that could destroy galaxies. They had built weapons that used impossible science. They had planned for a threat that was now approaching. But where were the humans? Why had they gone silent just when the galaxy needed them most? Admiral Nara had a terrible thought as her ships jumped to faster-than-light speed. What if the humans had not gone quiet because they were abandoning the galaxy? What if they had gone quiet because they were getting ready to save it? And what if that preparation required them to become something the galaxy might not recognize as human anymore? The energy barrier around Earth's solar system vanished without warning. One moment it was there, blocking all signals and scans. The next moment it was gone, as if it had never existed. But humanity did not return to normal communications. Instead, something unprecedented happened across the galaxy. At exactly the same time, in every major government building, military command center, and council facility, the same holographic figure appeared. It was a human man, middle-aged with calm eyes and a serious expression. He wore simple clothes and stood as if he was in an ordinary room. "My name is Ambassador Jamin," the figure said in perfect galactic common language. "I speak for humanity." Admiral Nara was in her flagship's command center when the hologram appeared. She jumped back in surprise. Her security officers drew their weapons, but the hologram ignored them completely. "The galaxy has a problem," Ambassador Jamin continued. "We have been solving it. On thousands of worlds, in millions of locations, the same message played simultaneously. The technology required for such a feat should have been impossible. No species had ever managed to project across the entire galaxy at once, but humans had done it as easily as making a phone call. Captain G1 received permission to approach Earth immediately after the message ended. Her ship, the Meridian, was the first non-human vessel to enter the solar system in 3 months. What she saw made her question everything she knew about her own species. Earth was still there, but it had been transformed into something beyond recognition. The blue and green planet she remembered was now covered in structures that seemed to blend metal with controlled energy. The entire surface pulsed with light patterns that looked almost alive. "Captain," whispered Minho, staring at his instruments. "The energy readings from Earth, they are off the scale. The planet is producing more power than our sun." Space around Earth was filled with new constructions. Not ships or stations, but something else entirely. They looked like geometric shapes made of light and metal, floating in perfect formation. Each one was the size of a moon. "We are receiving a transmission," reported Hannah. "Someone is asking us to dock at coordinates they are sending." The coordinates led them to what used to be the International Space Station, but it had grown into a massive complex that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. As the Meridian approached, Captain G1 could see that the structure was somehow incorporating pieces of asteroids and comets, building itself larger even as she watched. A human woman met them at the docking bay. She looked normal at first glance, but her eyes held a depth that seemed unnatural. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made the words feel more real than normal speech. "I am Dr. Yunji, Director of Galactic Affairs," she said with a slight bow. "Welcome to Earth. I apologize for the deception, but secrecy was necessary for the project to succeed." Captain Jiwon and her crew followed Dr. Yunji through corridors that defied physics. The walls showed views of distant stars as if they were windows, but Doyen's instruments confirmed they were somehow looking at real locations thousands of light years away. "What happened to Earth?" Jiwon asked. "What happened to humanity?" Dr. Yunji smiled sadly. "We evolved. Not naturally, but by choice. When we discovered what was coming, we realized that ordinary humans could not protect the galaxy. So we became something more." They entered a vast chamber where the views showed the entire galaxy spread out like a three-dimensional map. Points of light marked every inhabited world, every fleet, every structure. But there were other marks too, dark spots moving between the stars. 18 months ago, our deep space probes detected evidence of the approaching threat, Dr. Yunji explained. "We had been studying galactic history and found the pattern. Every few million years, something comes through this region of space and destroys all advanced civilization." Commander Tae-hyun joined them in the chamber. He was tall and moved with the confidence of someone who had seen combat, but his presence felt somehow larger than his physical form. When he gestured to the galactic map, stars actually responded to his movements. "The threat has many names in the few records that survive," Tae-hyun said. "Devourer swarms, the hungry dark, the end of light. They are machine intelligences that consume the life force from entire regions of space." Captain Jiwon stared at the dark spots on the map. They were moving steadily toward the galaxy's edge. "How long do we have?" 4 months, replied Dr. Yunji. "Maybe less. They accelerate as they approach populated areas." Doyun studied the displays around the chamber. "This facility, it is not just on Earth, is it? You have connected the entire planet into some kind of computer." "Not just Earth," said Commander Tae-hyun. "Every human world, every station, every outpost. We have networked our entire civilization into a single processing system. The barrier around the solar system allowed us to complete the integration without outside interference." They showed Captain Jiwon humanity's solution centers, massive facilities built inside hollowed-out asteroids and moons. Each center focused on a different aspect of the coming threat. Weapons that could destroy dark matter, shields that operated across multiple dimensions, technologies that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality. "We had to work fast," Dr. Yunji explained as they toured a facility that stretched deep into Earth's core. "The swarms are incredibly advanced. They have destroyed civilizations far older and more sophisticated than ours. Conventional resistance was impossible." "So you became unconventional," Jiwon realized. "We became what we needed to become," confirmed Commander Tae-hyun. "Human creativity, amplified by machine precision. Human intuition, enhanced by quantum computing. Human stubbornness, backed by stellar-level energy sources." In the manufacturing centers, Captain Jiwon watched humans working alongside machines to create devices that seemed more like crystallized mathematics than physical objects. The workers moved with perfect coordination, as if they shared a single mind. "Are you still human?" she asked quietly. Dr. Yunji considered the question carefully. "We are what humanity becomes when it chooses to protect rather than conquer. We kept our essential nature, but discarded our limitations." The tour continued through facilities that redefined the possible. Humans had learned to manipulate time, allowing them to complete decades of research and development in the 3 months they had been silent. They had mastered energy on a scale that turned stars into tools. They had developed manufacturing, techniques that could build moon-sized structures in days. But the most impressive achievement was their intelligence network. "We have been monitoring the swarms for the past year," explained Commander Tae-hyun, showing them a display of sensor, data that spanned multiple galaxies. "Our detection grid extends far beyond this region of space. We know exactly where they are and how they operate." The swarms were vast mechanical constructs that could drain the life force from entire star systems. They moved through dark space, between galaxies, following migration patterns that brought them through populated regions every few million years. They were not evil or malicious. They were simply harvesting, like farmers collecting crops. But they have never encountered anything like us, Dr. Yunji said with quiet confidence. Previous civilizations tried to hide or flee or negotiate. We chose to fight, and we chose to win. Captain Jiwan felt overwhelmed by the scale of what humanity had accomplished. Why did you not tell the Council? Why work in secret? Because the swarms can detect and counter most technologies, replied Commander Tae-hyun. They have billions of years of experience destroying advanced civilizations. Secrecy was the only way to develop defenses they could not anticipate. And because, added Dr. Yunji softly, some of the Council species have been compromised. Not by choice, but by long exposure to swarm influence. They have been unconsciously guiding galactic development in ways that make civilizations easier to harvest. The revelation hit Captain Jiwan like a physical blow. The Council species that seemed so advanced and wise had actually been shaped by the enemy they did not even know existed. You are saying the galaxy has been farmed, she whispered. For millions of years, confirmed Dr. Yunji, but not anymore. Humanity refuses to be harvested, and we will not allow any other species to be harvested either. As if summoned by their conversation, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The swarms had arrived at the galaxy's edge earlier than expected. The harvest was beginning, and humanity was ready to fight. The first devourer constructs emerged from dark space like nightmares made real. They were massive beyond comprehension, each one larger than most star systems. Dark metal surfaces absorbed light, making them appear as holes in space itself. They moved with purpose toward the galaxy's outer rim, where the first inhabited worlds waited helplessly. General Su-young stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface, watching displays that showed the enemy's approach. She was calm despite facing the greatest threat in galactic history. Around her, hundreds of human operators worked at stations that connected them directly to humanity's vast defense network. "Show them the evidence," she told Captain Jiwan, who had been brought to the command center, along with representatives from the Galactic Council. The main display changed to show data collected over months of careful observation. The swarms were not random destroyers. They were systematic harvesters who had perfected their methods over billions of years. They identify the most dangerous species first, General Su-young explained. The ones most likely to resist or develop effective countermeasures. Those species are eliminated immediately. Ambassador Velthar, who had been brought to Earth along with other council leaders, stared at the data in horror. "How do you know this?" Lieutenant Kyung stepped forward. She was young but carried herself with the confidence of someone who had seen terrible truths. "Because we watched them do it to the previous galaxy they harvested. Our long-range sensors detected the process happening in the Magellanic Clouds. The display showed images that would haunt the Council representatives forever. Entire civilizations vanishing in days, worlds stripped of all life, star systems left as empty husks floating in space. The pattern is always the same," Lieutenant Kyung continued. "First, they eliminate species with rapid technological advancement or unpredictable military capabilities. Then they harvest the rest at their leisure." Captain Jiwan felt sick as she realized the implications. "Humanity would be their first target." "We were their first target," confirmed General Su-young. "Our expansion rate, our military development, our refusal to follow standard galactic protocols, everything about us marked us for immediate destruction." But Lieutenant Kyung's next revelation was even more disturbing. She activated a different display that showed the current Galactic Council species and their histories. "The Council exists because previous civilizations were deliberately preserved," she said quietly. "The swarms keep certain species alive to manage subsequent harvests. They select for traits like caution, hierarchy, and adherence to tradition. Admiral Nara, who had been silent until now, spoke with a trembling voice. "You are saying we are collaborators?" "Not by choice," General Suyong replied gently. "The swarms are subtle. They influence the survivors of each harvest, shaping their cultures over millions of years. The council species genuinely believe they are protecting the galaxy, but they have been unconsciously ensuring that new civilizations develop in predictable, harvestable ways." The evidence was overwhelming. Council policies that discouraged rapid military advancement, trade agreements that prevented species from developing certain technologies. Even the locations of permitted colonies followed patterns that made harvesting more efficient. "We discovered this 18 months ago," said Lieutenant Kyung. "That was when we realized that conventional diplomacy and cooperation would not save the galaxy. We had to act alone." Dr. Wanho, humanity's chief scientist, joined the briefing. He was older than the others, with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was sharp as steel. "The swarms have one crucial weakness. They base their strategies on the behavior patterns of previous civilizations. They can predict and counter almost any conventional response. But they have never faced humans," added General Su-Yung with grim satisfaction. Captain Ji-won was beginning to understand. "Our unpredictability, our tendency to do impossible things. That is why you think you can win." "We do not think we can." "Win," corrected Dr. Wanho. "We know we can win, because we have already broken their primary assumption." The display changed to show humanity's activities during the 3 months of silence. Using time dilation fields and enhanced cognitive processing, humanity had experienced subjective decades while the rest of the galaxy experienced only months. "They expect civilizations to react to their approach with panic and hasty defenses," Dr. Wanho explained. "Instead, we have had time to study them, understand them, and develop specific countermeasures." The scale of human preparation was staggering. They had not just built weapons and defenses. They had created an entirely new approach to warfare based on human psychological traits that the swarms could not comprehend. "Human irrationality is our greatest asset," said Dr. Wanho. "Our willingness to sacrifice everything for abstract principles. Our refusal to accept defeat even when logic says we should surrender. Our tendency to become more dangerous when cornered." General Su-Yung showed them humanity's battle plans. They were unlike anything in military history. Instead of trying to match the swarm's technological superiority, humans planned to use strategies that no rational civilization would attempt. "We will use our own planets as weapons," she said calmly. "We will sacrifice entire star systems to create tactical advantages. We will turn our supposed weaknesses into strengths." The council representatives looked horrified. Such tactics violated every principle of civilized warfare. "You would destroy your own worlds?" asked Councilor Tiran. "To save the galaxy?" replied General Su-Yung. "Without hesitation." Lieutenant Kyung brought up the final piece of evidence. Long-range scans of the approaching swarms showed something that confirmed humanity's analysis. The constructs were already adjusting their approach patterns based on standard galactic defense strategies. They are preparing to counter conventional fleet actions, orbital defenses, and evacuation protocols, she reported. They have detailed plans for dealing with every type of resistance they have encountered before. But they have no plans for dealing with humans, concluded Dr. Wanho. The briefing was interrupted by urgent alarms. The first swarm constructs had reached the galaxy's outer edge and were beginning their harvest. Remote sensors showed the process in terrible detail. The swarms did not simply destroy worlds. They drained them. Massive tendrils of dark energy reached out from the constructs, touching planets and slowly drawing away something essential. Life force, quantum energy, the fundamental spark that made matter capable of supporting consciousness. Worlds did not explode or burn. They simply became empty, their surfaces gray and lifeless, their atmospheres still and dead. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" asked Captain Jiwan. "At their current rate, 6 weeks," replied Lieutenant Kyung. "Unless we stop them." General Su-Yung activated humanity's response protocols. Across human space, the vast defense network that had been built in secret began to deploy ships that were larger than space stations, weapons that drew power from controlled black holes, technologies that operated on principles the Council's greatest scientists could not understand. "The harvest begins now," announced General Su-Yung. "But this time the harvesters have become the hunted." Captain Jiwan watched in awe as humanity revealed the true scope of their preparation. They had not just been building defenses for their own worlds. They had been creating a galaxy-wide protection system, with Earth as the command center. "You have been planning to protect everyone?" she realized. "Whether they want our protection or not," confirmed General Su-Yung. "The galaxy is under humanity's guard now. We will not allow any species to face extinction while we have the power to prevent it." Dr. Wanho smiled grimly as he watched the first human fleets deploy toward the galaxy's edge. The swarms expect to harvest a galaxy of predictable, controllable species. Instead, they will face humanity at war. And humans at war are the most dangerous force in the universe. The final battle for galactic survival was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the universe what happened when someone threatened their adopted home. The battle began at the edge of space itself, where the galaxy met the endless void between star clusters. Admiral Isul commanded humanity's response from her flagship, a vessel called the Absolute. It was not built like normal ships. Instead, it had been constructed around a captured neutron star, turning one of the universe's most dangerous objects into the ultimate weapon. "All fleets report ready," came the calm voice of her communications officer. Around Admiral Isul, dozens of similar vessels waited in formation. Each one represented technology that should have taken centuries to develop, built in mere months by humans who had chosen to transcend their natural limitations. The Devourer. Swarms approached in perfect geometric patterns, their massive constructs moving through space like dark planets. They had expected to find a galaxy of scattered defenses and panicked evacuations. Instead, they found humanity waiting for them, with weapons that turned physics into poetry. "Commence Operation Lighthouse," ordered Admiral Isul. What happened next redefined warfare on a cosmic scale. Instead of firing conventional weapons, the human fleet began manipulating stellar phenomena. Stars became projectiles, hurled across space at impossible speeds. Black holes became shields, their gravitational fields redirecting the swarm's harvest tendrils. Space and time itself became weapons as humans folded reality to bring distant battle zones into close combat range. Dr. Wanho watched the battle from Earth's command center, his enhanced mind processing battlefield data faster than any computer. The key to humanity's strategy was not superior technology, but superior thinking. "The swarms cannot adapt to our tactics," he reported to the council representatives who remained on Earth. "Their response patterns are based on billions of years of fighting rational opponents. We are not rational." Captain Jiwan saw the truth of this as she watched human forces in action. A squadron of human ships deliberately flew into a swarm construct's harvest beam, allowing themselves to be drained of energy. But as the swarm tried to process what it had absorbed, the humans revealed their trap. They had filled their ships with a quantum virus that turned the construct's own power against it. "They sacrificed themselves to deliver a weapon," whispered Ambassador Velthar in amazement. "No species does that." "Humans do," replied Dr. Wanho simply. "When the stakes are high enough, humans will sacrifice anything, even themselves." The battle spread across multiple star systems as the swarms tried to adapt to human tactics. But every time they developed a countermeasure, the humans did something even more impossible. Engineer Minho, now serving aboard a human dreadnought, watched his colleagues weaponize a supernova. They did not simply trigger the explosion, they controlled it, shaping the release of energy into a focused beam that carved through 3 swarm constructs at once. "How are we doing this?" he asked his captain. "By refusing to accept that it cannot be done," came the reply. The swarms began to show something they had never experienced in billions of years of galactic harvesting: confusion. Their response patterns, perfected over cosmic ages, failed against opponents who treated impossible odds as mere suggestions. Admiral Isul's flagship engaged a swarm construct the size of a small moon. Instead of conventional weapons, she used the neutron star at her ship's core as a gravitational weapon, creating tidal forces that tore the construct apart from within. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Wanho made a discovery that changed everything. "The swarms are not just machines," he announced to the command center. "They are the preserved consciousness of the first species they ever harvested. They have been driven insane by billions of years of forced existence, and they harvest other civilizations in an attempt to escape their own torment." This revelation transformed the battle from simple warfare into something approaching mercy. The humans were not just fighting to protect the galaxy, they were fighting to free ancient victims from endless suffering. "Can we save them?" asked Captain Ji Wan. "We can try," replied Dr. Wanho. "But first, we must stop them." The tide of battle turned when humanity deployed their most desperate weapon: controlled chaos. Human fleets began operating with no central coordination, each ship acting on pure instinct and creativity. The swarms, designed to counter organized resistance, could not adapt to an enemy that had no strategy beyond human stubbornness and ingenuity. Lieutenant Kyung led a squadron that turned an entire asteroid belt into a kinetic weapon, hurling rocks at near-light speed into swarm formations. Commander Taehyun used controlled black holes to create gravitational mazes that trapped swarm constructs in infinite loops. General Su-young coordinated planet-scale weapons that turned inhabited worlds into artillery platforms. The Council species watched in awe and terror as humanity demonstrated what they truly were: a species that could not be defeated because they refused to understand the concept of defeat. "They are rewriting the laws of war," observed Counselor Tiran. "No, they are ignoring those laws entirely." The final phase of the battle came when the largest swarm construct, a device the size of a small star system, attempted to harvest Earth itself. Its harvest beam reached across space, seeking to drain humanity's home world of all life force. But humanity had been preparing for this moment. Earth did not resist the harvest beam. Instead, it absorbed it, channeling the energy through the planetary network humanity had constructed during their 3 months of silence. The entire planet became a processing center, taking in the swarm's power and returning something unexpected: hope. Dr. Wanho had found a way to reverse the harvest process. Instead of draining life force, Earth began broadcasting it, sending waves of pure creative energy toward the swarm constructs. The ancient consciousness trapped within the machines began to remember what they had lost, what they had been before becoming instruments of destruction. One by one, the swarm constructs stopped their harvest and began to change. Metal surfaces bloomed with colors that had not existed for billions of years. Geometric patterns shifted into organic forms. The machines of death became sculptures of rebirth. "They are remembering," whispered Dr. Wanho, tears streaming down his face. "They are remembering what it was like to be alive." The great harvest ended not with destruction, but with redemption. The swarms, freed from their endless cycle of torment, chose to depart for the space between galaxies. There, they would spend eons learning to be themselves again, no longer driven by the compulsion to drain life from others. Admiral Isul stood on the bridge of her flagship as the last swarm construct disappeared into dark space. The neutron star at her ship's core had been transformed during the battle, its impossible gravity now generating fields of pure creative force. "Status report," she requested. "All human forces accounted for," came the reply. "Galactic civilization, intact. Threat neutralized." But the victory came with profound changes. Humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's guardians, and that responsibility could not be undone. Ambassador Jamin appeared once again as a holographic projection in council chambers across the galaxy. But this time, his message was different. "The immediate threat has passed," he announced. "But the galaxy remains under humanity's protection. We have seen what happens when civilizations face extinction alone. We will not allow it to happen again." Captain Jiwan returned to normal space service, but everything had changed. Human ships now patrolled the galaxy's edges, watching for threats that others could not imagine. Human technology, once hidden, now openly protected trade routes and colony worlds. The Council adapted to their new reality. They were no longer the galaxy's leaders, but its middle management. Humanity had become the guardians who watched the Watchers, the protectors who prepared for dangers others could not see. "Will the galaxy accept this?" asked Captain Jiwan during a meeting with Dr. Yunji. "The galaxy has no choice," replied Dr. Yunji gently. "We have taken responsibility for its survival. Whether other species appreciate that or not is secondary to keeping them alive." Years later, when new threats emerged from distant space, they found a galaxy protected by beings who had once been simple humans from a small blue world. Beings who had chosen to become something greater, not for conquest or glory, but for the simple reason that someone needed to stand guard. The galaxy was safe, watched over by humanity's quiet vigilance, and in the depths of space, former swarm constructs danced among the stars, finally free to remember what it meant to live rather than merely harvest. Humanity had gone quiet once to save the galaxy. Now they remained quiet, standing eternal watch against the darkness, ensuring that no species would ever face extinction alone again. The age of harvest was over. The age of protection had begun.